Hey guys, this is a continuation of our deck text from the Spark of Mediocrity. This time I'm going to go over my Victor deck. It's a pretty meme deck, honestly. It's nothing too special. I wanted to use Golden Glare because I figured nobody else would want to use it because it looks like trash. And I'm happy to say it is pretty trash, but I think it's pretty fun to roleplay as slightly more rich Victor. So yeah, played a couple games with it, made a couple changes to the deck list. Nothing as extensive as Oliver's testing, but I think that Victor is in a pretty good spot overall in the meta. He has a couple bad matchups, but he is quite a powerful deck. Turns out block 4, draw a card is a very big drug. So, why do you want to play Victor? Good question. If you like old him, specifically how old him was like, just like forcing like lots of damage through and like kind of forcing your opponents to block out and like slowly grinding your opponents down. That is basically what Victor does. He doesn't do as much disruption as Victor or even Bravo, but his damage output is slightly higher than either of those heroes. And honestly, at a certain point in the game, the damage is the disruption because they need to stay alive. So it is a nice feeling, and I really like enjoying playing towards the fatigue by damage style type decks. So I figure Victor was a pretty good fit for me. So if you like Ultim, and if you like grinding people out like Arachne or Azuri fatigue, Victor is pretty close to that. Slightly more boring, but pretty close to that. So going through the deck list, main equipment, it's pretty standard other than Golden Glare. It's honestly not as good as Balance of Justice. I have Balance of Justice in my maybe board right here. If you want to actually like improve the deck, but yeah, Aura Magus, I figure that's like going to be the default shield for Victor. It's gold. You can use it as gold. It can close out a game with Golden Sun. Good stuff. Civic Steps, that's pretty standard Guardian stuff. Gauntlets of Iron Will, also pretty standard Guardian stuff. Very rarely will you want the bonus from Crater Fist. So I figure Gauntlets of Iron Will is great for the ninja matchup, and is overall just great to like block people out and be a giant wall and fridge. So Golden Glare, you need to defend it with two or more yellow cards. This basically never came up, and other than that, it's just a block 2 helmet. Hence why Balance of Justice is probably better. I do have a slightly increased amount of yellows, aka 1.25 playsets more than normal. So the idea was that I'd have the possibility of triggering Golden Glare and getting extra value off of the helmet. But Victor generates so much value regardless that it's not that big of a deal. I can't bring myself to cut it though, because I think it's a nice budget helm. And if you don't have or don't want to spend money on Balance of Justice or Crown of Providence, then you can run Golden Glare, and it's not that much different, honestly. The same fundamentals apply, and you'll just get one less card over the course of the game if you end up not being able to block it out with Golden Glare. Miller's Grindstone is the default weapon. Honestly, you don't lose clashes with it often. Like you might occasionally, but you won't attack with it for the first part of the game, and presumably your other uses for gold are either Golden Sun, which is great, or just popping it to draw a card, and that's not as great given the high amount of reds and yellows that we have in the deck. So you generally save your gold for the clashes, and it's pretty fun. Tectonic Plating is a nice resource sink. It gives you something to do to overpitch to get dead cards out of your hand and just cycle through your deck and get your value cards faster. Also, if you end up drawing a card from gold and you don't have a good way to use the extra card, you either just arsenal it or you just cycle it with Tectonic Plating, and you are totally fine with that. Cool. Oliver's with me. He said he was going to talk, but he hasn't talked yet.
I mean, what is there to talk about?
I mean,
Right.
it's Guardian, right? Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
like, okay, how does this differ from Bravo? Is there good pros and cons?
Yeah, good pros and cons is that you have your sync below's draw a card.
It's crazy.
That's a pro. Like literally test the strength, and like Trounce is fun, but it's not like a reason why you'd run Victor. Test the strength is the reason why you run Victor. If you don't have Test the strength in your Victor deck, I think that you probably need to just play Bravo, because there's Like there's clashes and like he benefits off of clashes and he benefits from gold, but the benefits aren't great unless you're doing things above rate. And Test of Strength is the best above rate card there is. It's spend a card, get 7 points of value from it. It's good. Um, so uh, other than that, everything that you can do here, you can do in Bravo. But Victor is great at being able to utilize the cards effectively. And in Bravo, there's certain situations where you're basically spending a card to give something dominate that you don't really need to give dominate, or that you're trying to like force through damage to get a win. But like most people say, Bravo doesn't have a hero ability really. Like the dominate's good, but it's like not super important until it like until you unless you're in a specific situation. And in lots of games, you don't actually get into situations where dominate is super important, or you have an opportunity for dominate. So Victor's here to kind of take advantage of that. Other than that, it's an overall fun deck. I have a full rainbow set of choke slams. I think in this metagame, choke slams are pretty relevant. There's a lot of pumps going around, and there are, in general, just a lot of reasons why you want to block out choke slams. The yellow choke slams are here for Golden Glare, but they also I find that they're pretty decent, just to be able to force out either some armor blocks or a 2-card block, because it's hard for people to deal with like 3/4/7s, right? And this is a 3/7, except it costs 4, which is ass, but like occasionally costs 3. Occasionally costs 3 with TikTok play. Yeah. And like you generate so many like random vigors and so many like random like extra resources off of the clashes that you might just be able to like naked swing this with a 2-card hand with no problem. So yeah, I'm pretty high on Chokeslam. I think that's a great card in the format right now, and it's just a good answer to a lot of the shenanigans that would make Victor difficult to, or make it difficult for Victor to block out. Debilitates and disables. They're kind of just there. They're good cards that help win clashes, and occasionally you might attack with them. Generally, Victor just wants to swing with like an 8 power plus attack every turn, and that will just naturally fatigue your opponent. Even if they're blocking out all the damage, you're just naturally going for the fatigue, right? So
Yeah.
all these like high cost attacks, they're kind of awkward to play on 2-card hands. But Victor doesn't have that many 2-card hands. Usually his 2-card hands are actually 3-card hands because he generated some sort of like he won some sort of like clash. And honestly, this deck doesn't lose too many clashes. I've lost like 1 clash in the 4 or 5 games I played with him. So not only am I not qualified to make a deck tech after 4 or 5 games, but clearly my experiences are going to carry over to the real world. But yeah, it's efficient attacks, efficient blocks. Zealous Bolting is there by default. Most people will include in the sideboard. I think it's good enough that you can just run it in the main board. The 2 block on it does occasionally matter, but like with other decks, Victor can take a lot of like damage, and the 2 block doesn't matter because usually you're playing this first cycle anyway. Very rarely will you need to pitch it. So it's very easy to turn on Zealous Bolting in this deck because every blue is like 6 power above except like 1.
Clash of Vigor.
Clash of Vigor. I guess Wallop won't turn it on, but that's basically it.
Did you make any changes from when we initially start first recording?
Yeah. So I have a couple changes. Mostly it's a couple changes to the sideboard and some additions to the maybe board. Originally I had a couple of interesting things in the sideboard, mostly in the yellow section that I wanted to try out for the purposes of Golden Glare, to be honest, which is mostly Stonewall Confidence. It's been a pet card since I started playing. It's been one of my pet cards, and I was finally happy to find a way to like use Stonewall Confidence in an interesting way. I boarded it in against Guardians and against Rangers. Most of the time, it does its job. It's just you're basically spending 1 less card on blocking to like get 3 extra power from this card, or 3 extra block from this card. Um, yeah, it's good. It's efficient. Occasionally, it'll be awkward where you have to block with like where you like draw your non-3 cost attacks like test of strength and trounces. But it's just a very good way to make it very annoying for your opponent to efficiently present damage. And I've noticed that when you do get it off, it is very discouraging for the opponent to be like, well, I'm gonna attack you for 9, and then you're gonna block with 1 card, and I'm gonna not do anything to you, like 3 damage. So, it's pretty fun. But I
Okay.
cut one down because double confidence is really annoying to play out when you have the chance. And usually, if you are playing out double confidence, you probably took a bunch of damage last turn, so it's not that great. Um, I had it starting to stick to the maybe board. I wanted to add it to the main board, but it's got the soul food issue where even on turn 0, if you use it, it's like you'd much rather just throw out an attack and just force a couple cards out of the deck. Yeah, it's hard. There aren't very many good yellows for Victor to run to make Golden Glare worth it.
Okay. So since your sideboard is like all defense reactions, do you usually board above 60?
Usually good question. I don't really board above 60 unless I need to, or usually I play the main 60. The defense reactions are basically there in case I anticipate a fatigue matchup, or a matchup where I absolutely want to go for like defense-based fatigue. Um, I bring in Sync Belows and take out like I think I take out Righteous Cleansings against Katsu, just because you're never gonna get off Golden Glare against Katsu, and Righteous Cleansings you're never gonna play them because they're too costly. Um, and then Slash Responses will go in against Zalia and Guardian, but very rarely is it going above 60. I haven't really found an issue with it, and most of the times I've fatigued people, it's been pretty handedly, pretty comfortably like in my favor in terms of fatigue. So
Okay.
I'm not too worried about like deck count. Obviously, if I play against good players, or like really good players, I probably will change that. But I'm not too worried.
Okay.
You don't want to
How do you
go too much above 60 because um, eventually, like because most of these cards are going to be not used first cycle, uh, your deck's going to be diluted down to like clash wins anyway. But you want to win your clashes pretty early on to just get the early lead. So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. So since you're not running like Rouse and like out muscles and E strikes, how do you feel this plays into Dromai?
Good
Since
question.
that's usually like a point in contention for most Guardian players.
Yeah. Actually, this is why I have maybe board, which is performance bonus, because I think performance bonus is hilarious against Dromai, like Oliver mentioned in his deck. Um, my general thoughts about the Dromai matchup is good luck. It's very hard for Victor to deal with Uvias, and you can run a Nothos in sideboard for Uvia. It's not that big of a deal, but in general, it's like it's a really tough matchup. Um, I don't. I'm not worried about them. But if your meta has high amounts of Dromai, I would probably run Outmuscles and Rouses for sure. Uh, this is not a Dromai friendly list.
And by Dromai friendly, you mean
As in,
not good for you.
I will not be friendly when I go into Dromai list.
Okay. Yeah. And is there a reason why you're not running any pummels? Because usually Guardians are running pummels, but
Yeah. Mostly it's just about clash density. Um, as you notice, like the only like non-attacks I'm running in the main 60 are Test of Strength and Trounce.
okay.
Um, and I really want to make sure that I hit my clashes, because if I'm not winning clashes, I'm just bad Bravo, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So
That's right.
yeah, so like I said, it's like just you want to maximize Victor's ability and you want to maximize what makes him good, and that is clashing. So I'm not running like I'm not coping by running like yellow Clash of Vigors or anything, but at the same time I'm just like it's not if I don't want to make this to be a Bravo deck, and if this can just like swap into Bravo with like no big issue, I'd rather just play Bravo because he has Crippling Crush and he has Starstruck, and those are two really good cards that you would rather play.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like there's no way to like close out a game. There's only one source of evasion, which is a Golden Sun with Overpower.
Yep.
and
There's
maybe I
also
guess
Macho
blocking.
Grande, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
But
sometimes you just attack and there's just like vanilla damage.
yeah, usually you don't need to close out a game, right? Either you set up a golden sun and you win, but they're usually opponents are pretty comfortable going relatively low life early on just by taking eating like eights and nines and stuff. And if you're blocking efficiently with like Tesla strength and trounces, your life total is usually either at parity with them or slightly above them. So closing out the game isn't so much an issue because you can pretty comfortably like once you're in the lead, you'll slowly use that life total buffer or like deck total buffer to just grind them out and eventually close out the game naturally by fatiguing them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what do you think the best matchups are?
Best matchups?
Best and worst matchups.
Yeah. Best matchups definitely. People have mentioned Katsu. Katsu's pretty good. This is slightly worse than the Katsu because there's not as many D reacts. I only have Sync Below and Staunch responses and Dada Yachts. You just bring Sync Belows and Dada Yacht into Katsu, and that's it. But I think Katsu's a relatively good matchup. Fi is a pretty good matchup because it's all value based. Azalea's pretty good matchup because even with Dominate, you have enough like on card value that she absolutely has to hit her dominates to win, and she can't always do that with all the disruption you're putting out. This is where chokeslams come in handy, where she can only like effectively block the first yellow or red chokeslam, and then after that you're basically neutering her ability to strike back, and from there you just kind of take tempo. So yeah, those matchups are pretty good. Any deck that's prone to fatiguing naturally, Victor will just take advantage of. Any deck that can fatigue themselves, such as Arachne or Azuri, is generally a little harder. But they're usually not too bad. I think they're pretty even. And then obviously, worst matchups, Dromai for sure. Prism for sure. I haven't tested against Prism, but I assume the way Oliver plays Prism, I'm gonna die. Unless you're on lag. Lag is slightly better. Yeah.
Sorry, don't want to play with lag. That sucks.
Yeah. I think
Delay
Katsu.
is
Yeah.
bad.
I think Kasai is not so bad either. Like the Warriors aren't so bad. It's mostly a skill based matchup. I think there. But I think you have a general edge as long as you're able to like know what to play around for Dory, and know what to play around for Bolton.
Yeah, I feel like Dory is a little bit annoying for you because you don't have enough D reacts for their attack reactions. So Kasai is like the damage is on the board for Kasai. You
Yeah.
don't really need to worry about the combat tricks, but Dorinthia has a ton of combat tricks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little harder for Dorinthia for sure. Against Dorinthia for sure.
Okay, cool. You like the deck?
Yeah, I think it's a fun deck. It's pretty easy. You just you hit them for like 8, like 4 or 5 times, and then you just hit them for 4, like 4 or 5 times, and then eventually you'll find a way to win.
Okay. What do you rate it? Perfect 5 out of 7.
I'm ready to lose with this deck.
No. What would you rate it?
Oh, what did I rate it?
Perfect 5 out of 7.
What scale are we using? Are we using like, is this deck actually good?
I don't know. I rated mine 10 out of 10. Would play again.
Okay, I'll rate it 8 out of 10. Fun theme. Pretty big weaknesses. I guess I downplayed the Dromai matchup. The Dromai matchup's awful. The Iris Prism matchup's awful. But
Yeah, but you can definitely change some cards to make those more reasonable, I think.
yeah. This one is just my stubbornness and like focusing on Clash is the downfall basically. Oh,
Cool.
1 out of 10 can't beat Tekla.
Ouch. Damn. Can't beat low tier hero. That sucks.
Yeah. Can't
Must
beat
be low
Tekla.
tier himself.
I can't beat Prism. I can't beat Tekla. It's garbage deck.
Got it. Cool. All right.
Alrighty.